screens on them. Boom. So you guys will be able to join in the conversation live. What's up, Ivo or Evo? All right, we got Josh here live. Chamomille's here. What up, Rescience? Clutch beat. There he is. What's going on? Forgive the delay. Please forgive the delay. How you feeling? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me okay and everything?
Oh yeah, I got you loud and clear. Chat, can you guys hear? But how you feeling? How you feeling?
I feel great, man. I feel great. Very blessed. Very blessed to be here. Very grateful.
Awesome. Same in return. I'm like, this is you just get what's it called? Not the tablets, but you know how the 10 Commandments came down on a tablet on the mountain and they gave it to Moses or whatever. I feel like that's what you just dropped in your new audio programmer book, which is how to create synthesizers. What's the full title? With Juice and C++?
Yeah, how to creating synthesizer plugins with C++ and Juice. That's right.
And Juice. And you dropped that with Mathesius. Am I saying that right?
So his name is actually pronounced Matthijs, like
Ma-
Matt Ice.
Matthijs. That makes it even doper. Wow.
Yeah, Matthijs Holloman. Yeah.
Matthijs. Wow. Firstly, I want to thank you because let me give people a history as to why I consider this conversation so important. So that's why I said forgive the delay because, you know, firstly is Josh is the man behind the scenes who, let me tell the whole story real quick. So firstly, I went to, Evan taught me, Evan Groves from a Studio Linked. I went to him to make like a plugin. It came out good. And I was like, this is great. I just want to learn how to like customize it a little bit to take it to a different level. So then Josh appeared somewhere. I was already subscribed to your YouTube channel, but then I decided to contact you. And then you were like, yeah, we can take it to a different level. So I went to Josh. He coordinated and organized the development behind it. It took about like a baby's time, 9 months to get this full product out, but it had everything that I asked in the product. And he coordinated and liaison, was there on all the meetings, mostly all the meetings, and just really showed me what a project manager is all about and somebody who's skilled as a teacher as well. So from that point, me taking this small little seed, Josh grew the seed up into a plant. And then that changed my whole perspective about just producer made products in general. So I want to firstly thank you because I would send people your way. Like, if they ever ask me about plugins and stuff, I'll just try to pass them because I understand that you opened up a gate that is just, not many people can tap into that world because they need capital and stuff.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's just as amazing for me as I think it is for the other people that I've had the opportunity to collaborate with. And it's really interesting just seeing this new age, and it's grown, and it's awesome seeing producers get out there with their own products. So we talked about this a few years ago about how the dream was that producers would be releasing their own products with their own vision, and that they would have the types of products that the bigger companies like the Native Instruments and the Focusrites and the Akai's of the world would have, but that they would actually have their own brands. And I think that we've successfully kind of actioned on that mission.
Yeah, I mean, you were behind, just to let people know, I believe you were behind the Knock plugin from Decap's Knock. So that, like, I just used that yesterday. I was like, this is insanity with the sub. First of all, getting all those features in one thing is almost better than any plugin out. So how did you get that pulled off?
Well, a lot of credit to Decap. Actually, he had a great vision. I think that helped a lot because we get so many people that come to us that they come to us with ideas, but the vision isn't very clear, or they want something that's kind of what I would call a Hall of Fame plugin, which is where they say, "Oh, I want the reverb from Valhalla, and I want the delay from Echo Boy by Soundtoys," and just put all of that into one plugin, and that's very difficult. But Decap, he had a great vision, a great product vision, and that's one of the things about this type of interaction, is because the producer becomes like what in our industry we call the product owner, the person who is really deciding what goes into and what stays out of the products. So he had a fantastic vision, and then it just allowed me to capitalize on what I feel I do the best, which is getting all the right people in the room. So
Right.
we had some experts that we got into the room to help develop on it. because there are all these elements that people don't really think about when it comes to building a plugin. They think it's just give it to some developer and who's sitting in some corner somewhere and
Some corner.
that's it. But there are so many things that go into it, and yeah, so credit to him, credit to the team that we put together to actually build it. So it was just this pipeline, this a lot of communication, a lot of going back and forth, a lot of finessing and tightening up on things until the sound is just right. So
No, I
yeah.
love that. You're definitely a high C on what's called the Hexaco score. C stands for, I want to say, coordination or something like that, to where it means organization. People were highly organized, and a high H because he definitely, because in the deal we did, you didn't have a lot of skin in that deal, but you helped me as if you did. You didn't have to do that initially, and that's why I respect you so deeply. Is because you just truly invested in the producer community as far as seeing us as a personal brand. Because a lot of people, I've even come to Image Line with ideas on Web3 and type stuff with my partner at the time. He was a CTO
Mhm.
and lawyer at the same time. And they just shot it down because whatever, but I don't believe they truly respect the personal brand and, that adds to their company. So all I'm saying is you're helping the personal brands be built, which I think are going to be the moats of 2024. Now that AI is taking route. So personal brand and marketing is going to be the thing, but also it's not just that we're going to be building our own thing. It's what if we build it so big that an NI can acquire it or that whoever can take it on. You see Plugin Alliance or what's that Soundwide with all the companies?
Yeah, yeah, but they actually rebranded recently back to Native Instruments again.
Oh, really?
But yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
think they tried an experiment there and it didn't really work out the way they envisioned. So they thought, let's just go back, refocus it back to Native Instruments.
Wow. Okay, so that just curious. So that's Native Instruments by themselves, or they own or control those other companies, or is this just separated?
Um, so they still own all the properties, but I think they rebranded it all back under Native Instruments. So stuff like Brainworks, what are the other brands that they have? I think Isotope is still under its own brand because it obviously has such a big brand name, but a lot of it just went back under Native Instruments as a brand because that just has such an iconic, you know,
Wow.
family. It's like a family name now, isn't it? Yeah, like everybody
For
knows it.
for real, I saw Native Instruments taking over. I was like, people think these contact banks are just them allowing us to just do whatever. I'm like, do y'all understand this is acquisition? Like when they're acquiring a Sonic Couture or whatever, and then it's 50% off. Like they're acquiring companies to so they control the board. I mean, maybe they were
Yeah.
trying to avoid monopoly claims or something like that, but Native Instruments is way bigger than I thought. Once I got into contact development, that's when I realized, oh, this is why they're the top dogs. Like, I mean, there's other reasons why, but can you explain maybe to a beginner who has no experience? Now, the reason I'm into this coding book so deeply is because I was learning Python
Mm.
because of the AI revolution, and I was like, I have to be up on it. So I went to Code Academy, started learning Python, and then I got so confident that I learned fast in 30 days. And I said,
Mhm.
I wanted to start building what I saw in my head. So that's, you already taught C++ years ago on YouTube for free
Mhm.
on how to build plugins and stuff. But
Mhm.
I didn't believe that I could code because I didn't have ChatGPT to kind of bounce back off of. And I just didn't believe I could code. I thought it was like this foreign language.
Mhm.
So to a beginner, how can we give them confidence to say, you can do this? It's not extremely complicated to where it will take your entire life to learn this, but you can get some confidence along the way.
Yeah. Well, in a lot of ways, it is like a foreign language. It is another language. And like learning any other language, there's, the 80/20 rule, which is that 20% of the 20% of the stuff will get you 80% there. So I think that's true when it comes to programming language as well, which is that if you look at a language like C++, there are people that have been developing using C++ for 10, 15, 20 years that they are always learning new things about the language that they didn't know was possible. Um, but you don't have to be a C++ expert in order to write a successful plugin. There are fundamentals, just like there are fundamentals to anything, to playing basketball, to playing football. And it's really just about getting those core fundamentals in place. And a lot of those core fundamentals are common to any language, that any programming language that you're learning, for loops, if statements, things like that. So it's all about just
True.
getting those core things down, and then from there you can learn how to start applying it to the world of audio. The world of audio is its own, it has its own nuances, and once again, those things go so deep and so nuanced
Right.
and so specific, but
The-
20% of it will get you 80% there.
oh no, I believe that because I literally study 1 to 2 hours a night with my pregnant fiance, and I would stay up to like 2 every night just studying one little piece at a time of Python. After 30 days, I went from not even knowing what to put in the actual, IDE, and then the next day was like "Hello World," and then the next day was a for loop, and then the next day, until I wrote like 200 lines of code, knowing nothing about coding beforehand. So that's what gave me confidence. I was like, wow, I did this in 30 days. That's insane, to go from nothing to something. And like you said, real quick, just to explain it to the folks in the chat, is that, when he's saying for loops, and so the first thing I learned was a print statement, or excuse me, a function called print. Then I learned how to make a list, it's called. Then you learn for loops. Then you learn dictionaries. Then you learn, if then logic and different things like that. So my point is, once you learn the fundamentals, I was like, wow, I know all the basics. Now it's just a matter of how do I combine all these basics to create complicated stuff. And then I ran into the real world, which is libraries and modules. And I said, oh, I got to relearn Python, but through the frame of this module. And I think that's what you're getting to is, I'll simplify for the folks, is that you don't have to learn music theory to be a music producer. Josh is showing you how to be a music producer in terms of building a plugin. And they use what's called primarily, what's it called? Juice library or Juice module or framework?
So it's actually called the Juice framework. So the framework is very similar to a library. I'd actually probably describe it as a collection of libraries.
I'm typing that in the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Keep cooking for me. Framework equals a collection of libraries.
Yeah, so I would describe the Juice framework as a collection of libraries. So when we say a library or we say a framework, so a lot of ways that I help this connect is, imagine if you were making a video game from scratch, that you would normally you would use some type. So a lot of people know about like Unreal Engine or Unity engine that people use to build video games. The reason that they use those engines is because they have a lot of built-in facilities in terms of things that it could provide that otherwise you would need to code yourself. So for example, let's say like physics, like nearly every game is going to have some type of physics to it. When you throw a ball, what's it going to do? Is it going to fly forever? Is it going to land a foot away from you? How strong is the gravity going to be? Things like that. So a lot of game engines, for example, would have things that where you would have some type of physics library that you'd be able to define a lot of those common things. So same thing for an audio framework. So just being able to write some code that actually is able to talk to your sound card and actually get sound out, that takes work. And if you were to build that, if you were just to build that from scratch, it would take you a while. It would take you a while to actually just build that core functionality. So the thing that makes something like Juice really nice is that what they've done is they've created this foundational abstraction layer that is able to take the code that you write, be able to put it out on Windows or Mac or iOS or on Android, and be able to deliver that in the different plugin formats. So you know how you have VST, AU, AAX. So normally, if you wanted to, back in the days before you had frameworks and people that did this really smart stuff, if you wanted to write an AU plugin, you would have to get the Audio Unit SDK from Apple. You'd have to figure out how to use that, write your code, and make it for AU distribution. Then you'd have to get the VST SDK from Steinberg. You'd have to do that, and you'd have to write that separately. Now, some parts of that code would be mutual, and some parts of that code would be exclusive. The way that they do those things is completely is different. So somebody said, okay, well, we have, for example, like a VST and an AU, they're going to have any plugin you have is going to have audio, for instance. So the way that they deal with audio for specific operating systems like Windows and Mac. So we're just going to write this abstraction layer where you can write this and it actually underneath the hood converts it to those specific formats or the specific operating systems. And so that's the really big thing that a framework like Juice can provide for you.
No, you made me. I'm writing notes. You made me realize in chapter, I think it's 2 or something. At the end of the chapter, how do you say it, Matthijs or Matt Ice?
Matthijs. Yeah, you said it
Matthijs.
right. So,
Shout out to Matthijs. Matthijs simplified it because I never knew what a wrapper was. You know, in Web3, they talked about wrapping Bitcoin and this and wrapping this and that. It's kind of
right.
like adding a name tag. I'm just going to simplify it, but this is overly simplified. It's like adding a name tag to let something know that it's okay to go through. Like you can't get into VIP unless you have a name tag that says VIP.
Hmm.
Is that kind of remotely what's happening? Is that we're basically giving the virtual or coded name tag to something so that it can go through and be registered as something? Am I making that? Am I overly simplifying that?
The way that I would describe it is more like a translation layer. So I would think of it as imagine you want to type something in English, but you want to translate it into um, Italian and Spanish, two languages that may be related but slightly but different at the same time. So you write your thing in English and it does the translation to, and so that's what a wrapper is. So you have these two things, which are in this case are Italian and Spanish, and you're wrapping it in this English language. So English is the language that you put in, and you get these two other things
Wow.
out as your output. Yeah.
That's why coding was so crazy to me because I'm like, what if a Japanese person made this system up? I don't even know how to learn from a Japanese culture, for example. But I'm simplifying. But yeah, something that the chat needs to know is that there's something called dependencies. And I didn't know this until you get into coding, is that you can build off of pre-made stuff, but in order to package and distribute that thing, it's like loops in music. If I use a
Mm.
copyrighted loop that isn't cleared and I put a song out, I could still get sued for that song because I didn't clear it with the original maker. So the same thing with code is that you have people who pre-built this stuff and they
Mhm.
want credit, or they have terms and conditions. Like I didn't understand why Cubase, or excuse me, Steinberg was so important. I thought it was just Cubase. Steinberg owns VST, like the trademark the VST and all the SDK behind it. So in order to even build a VST plugin, you have to go through Steinberg. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So to distribute a VST plugin, you have to have an agreement with Steinberg. That's correct. Yeah.
Mhm. And so then you realize, oh, these people own everything because they built the foundation to the house, so to speak. But real quick,
Hmm.
let's motivate some people. On the Juice website, I saw the different companies that use Juice. It was REFX that made Nexus 2. It was, I could pull up the list right now. Do you know that list off the top of your head, or some of those folks?
Oh, I mean, loads of them. I mean, I think even people at Apple use Juice. Yeah, it's really widely used.
Really?
Yeah, most independent audio plugin companies use Juice under the hood to create their products. Yeah, but some don't as well. So
Sorry, I was pulling up that list. Forgive me. I put
yeah.
it to the side so I could see the screen now. But so you're saying even companies that aren't in the audio plugin world, like iOS companies and different things like that, they can also use Juice? Because that's what's tricky to me is I'm always thinking how to build a plugin, not how to make an app. Does that make
Mm,
sense? S-
yeah.
So you can do that with this framework?
Yeah. So you can build your own standalone what they call a standalone application. So if you want to build your own DAW, you could build it. So they actually have this thing, it's called Traction, Tracktion. So that's actually the engine side of a DAW, of a DAW. So um so if you're familiar, there's a DAW that's called Waveform. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's actually that DAW, but it's just the what they call the engine side. So that when I say engine, what I mean is the inner workings of the DAW without the user interface, without the graphics.
Hmm. That's
So if
interesting.
you wanted to write your own DAW, you could actually use Traction Engine to write your own DAW.
That's nuts. That's so nuts. And I think, yeah, I want to be careful because I know you work with a lot of top companies, Ableton included, and all these top companies, Native Instruments. Am I making that up?
I've worked with Native Instruments in the past. Yeah.
And so I don't want to, because, I'm a maverick to where I could say whatever, do whatever, and just be like, F a company if I felt like it. And I just have to deal with the consequences, but I'm not going to put that on you. I think what's cool is that you're empowering folks, but not trying to create competition for these bigger companies. It's more so, hey, they have this super specific need that's not being filled. They're trying to fill that specific need or niche, whatever the word you want to use. And so from that point, I believe that you're building better collaborators with these companies. If I go to Native Instruments just as BusyWorks Beats, my leverage is my audience. But what if we go to Native Instruments with this product that they can actually package inside of their product? Now it becomes a double collaboration. I don't think you're creating competition. I think you're actually helping the bigger companies do better business, in my opinion. So
Yeah,
just
that's right. Yeah. I mean, when I think it's really interesting because companies, they have to, when they're creating their products, they're speaking from a company vision. So what does it mean to be um, a customer of Native Instruments? What types of products do they expect to come from this entity? So it's not one person. Whereas, and I think that you have a lot more overhead when you're dealing with that, as opposed to being a music producer. You have so much more freedom. You can really, the world's your oyster. And that, yeah, it's about creating something, taking something that's a vision and creating something real from it. And once you have something that's real, that has value, has worth, then, and once again, then it could be collaborations, it could be partnerships, partnership plugins, things like that. It's just, um, I think a lot of it is just really, once again, making it real. A lot of people have a vision out there, but the vision is just either unrealistic, it's foggy, it's not specific. The best plugins come from a specific vision and also kind of are in the realm of what's possible now. Yeah, that's
yeah.
the other.
I mean, if we really I'm thinking in my head, you're jogging so many thoughts, is that truly, if we think about all the plugins that truly have like a brand, like for example, what's the one? CLA Vocals is a joke in the producer community. CLA Vocals, CLA 2A, CLA 76. It's based
Hmm,
around Chris Lord Algae. But
right.
but it stands out as its own. I don't even know how many millions probably made a ton of millions of dollars off of just that. Thinking about who else is a personal brand? Murder Beats has a plugin with Steven
Mhm.
Slate. I'm sure they gain a gazillion people opting into their subscription because of that one plugin.
Mhm.
Decap has his own knock plugin. Now he sold that individually. I don't know if he did deals with distributors or whatever, but my point is, FL Studio just released this thing called Sounds, which is like a splice, but inside of FL Studio. And they didn't just launch Sounds and just call it the Trap Pack, the R&B Pack, the EDM Pack. They called it the Larry O Pack, the J Cactus Pack, the Arcade Pack, which are
Mhm.
people who make videos in the community. And so all I'm saying is that I think we're starting to realize how important the other side is. I think that's all I had to say. But real quick, on the screen I have pulled up are the companies that use Juice, Adobe, which is like a gazillion billion-dollar company, Antares, Arturia, Avid. I'm skipping some of the names, forgive me. Eventide, Fender, Focusrite. So like these are heavy hitters. REFX, Roland. So if I send people your way, do you think that you could build for them? Do you have that service still, or is that not a service?
Yeah, yeah, we still have that service, development service that we do where people come to us, they say we have a vision for a plugin that we'd like to build for our brand. And the nice thing is that, now we have ways that we're able to do this even quicker than what we were able to do before, and able to really help people realize their visions. Happy to help out.
I love that. Yeah, it's so you would think that going in you had to know stuff like myself dealing with your side of things, is that I would have to know coding and know how to troubleshoot with you, but you made it so easy that it made me feel almost guilty for it being that easy. Like, so I'm just trying to overcomplicate stuff. Like, okay, I have to deal with the waveforms and all this type of stuff going back and forth with loop points and all that. And thank you for making it super easy. I want to
Yeah.
say, I want to say too that the book, uh, creating a, s- I don't want to butcher the name of the book. Hold on, I have it open. It's Creating Synthesizer Plugins with C++ and Juice. That book alone, I'm only on up to the third chapter.
Mhm.
And it was a $37 book at the time. I don't know the price now, but that book honestly gave me insights that I didn't even expect out of it, like how audio works. Like, for
Mhm.
example, not I didn't know what audio truly was in the code world, but it's moving numbers basically.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And these plugins are just manipulating the moving numbers. In short, I know I'm just generalizing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way of putting it. I mean, if you look at, maybe some people know this, maybe some people haven't actually connected these things together, but when you're actually looking at a waveform in your DAW, what it literally is instructions to your speaker on how far forwards or backwards to move the speaker cone and how much to move it. And those are, and when you zoom in even closer, so if you zoom in really close, you can actually see just the specific points on the waveform. And those are numbers that are between -1 and 1. So yeah, so when you're generating when you're generating sound, it's like it all starts coming together. So when you're generating sound, um you're actually telling the speaker how to move forwards and backwards. And
Right.
how many instructions are you given a second? Well, that's sample rate. So if your sample rate is 44,100, that means you're giving 44,100 numbers to your speaker per second. So that's how
Wow.
it all comes together.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was like, wow, that just I didn't expect to learn stuff like that. It's actually shaping the way I'm looking at audio. Even before getting into the juice and the instructions, you actually learn a lot in the first chapter or two. I'm like, this is intense. And also, you're behind Scorch. Were you behind Octave?
No, we didn't do octave. Evan did octave.
I haven't done Octave. Well,
But we
Scorch.
did do Scorch. Yeah. Yeah, we
Scorch is
did.
the talk of the town. Sorry to talk. Sorry.
Yeah, we did do Scorch.
Oh, my bad. I was talking over you by accident. Yes, Scorch. For those who don't know, basically the Travis Scott plugin. My best friend Jacob went to Josh about an idea. Josh made it happen. It's called Scorch. You saw ads on it all over Instagram for like years, multiple. That's how successful that plugin was. Just to give you guys an example of how Josh has helped the producer community. That's why when I introduce people to you, I just want to make sure that they're not wasting your time. So that's why I got to be careful how I speak about you. Because yesterday something happened where I recommended an entertainment lawyer, and he got flooded with emails and got mad about it. So I was like, I got to be careful who I send your way. But so I will say that you can, with this book, what can we? I'm only on chapter 2. So what's the promise from the book? Because it was $37. I think it should be worth 3,000. The fact that you're giving this information away for free is pretty, or not free, but you know what I mean. At a low price is pretty insane.
Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, the main thing is getting the basics of what a synthesizer is, getting a basics of what building a plugin is, and getting you to a base level where you can actually create something that you've created yourself, load it into a DAW, and you can actually it's your instrument that you've created yourself. So that's like a dip. Is kind of dipping your toe in the water in terms of what it takes to create an instrument plugin. So I would compare any type of software development, especially audio development, to something like Checkers. Probably only takes a little while to teach you the basics, but you can go deep. You can go really, really deep with it.
Right.
And it's like grains of sand on a beach. That's how far you could go with talking about all the different things that you can do with audio and software.
That's what I love. I'm taking notes so I don't forget. And I don't know how many minutes we have left on Zoom. I don't have the paid Zoom, so it's gonna cut off at some point. I didn't get a warning yet. I'm just letting you know. Um,
Yeah.
is yeah, with C plus, excuse me, in music production, you can make beats just dragging in the loop, dragging in. Here's the warning right on the screen. I knew it. I felt it. Okay,
Yeah.
so you can make beats with just dragging in loops, melody loop, dragging a drum loop, call it a beat. That's one level. Then you can make your own drum pattern in the sequence, and then you drag in a loop. Okay, that's another level. Then you could do drums and make your own melodies from the plugin, or you could record. Now that's a layer. So there's always these layers under layers under layers. You can sound design. That's the underlaying layer. And then you can code your own plugin. So it's always going down and down and down and down and down. From
Yeah.
my understanding, you can correct me if this is way off, is that the reason C++ is used is because it's one of the fastest languages. And if you guys are running like audio processing plugins like a delay or a compressor, you don't want the audio to go in and take 2 seconds to come back out. You want it to process fast and then come back out.
Yeah, that's right. So in other languages like JavaScript, so C++ is probably one of the lowest level languages that you can use without going to something lower. Like if you even if you look at a lower level language like C or what they call assembly language, it starts not looking much like the way that you would actually kind of intuitively speak or talk code to somebody. So C++ is a very low level language, but it's also high level enough where people can make sense of it if you actually read it or try to make sense of it.
Right.
But then you have languages that are actually built on top of C++. So for example, I'm 99% sure Python, for example, is built on top of C++. So it's actually Python, and then it has to go through the C++ layer. But these higher level languages, they do things automatically that you would normally need to do manually if you were using C++. And that there's an asterisk beside that because there are exceptions to that rule. But generally speaking, that's what the situation is. So in Python, so a lot of it is around what's called resource management. So when you're doing something with Python, if you're writing audio in Python, and you want the problem with that is that when you are playing a MIDI instrument and you hit a key, you want the key to respond immediately without any delay because you want it to feel like a real instrument, right? But when you're dealing with higher level languages like Python and JavaScript, what happens is that you may have things that are happening that take what they call an indeterminate amount of time um, to actually do. So, for example, like getting rid of what they call garbage collection, which is like getting rid of resources, getting rid of stuff that you don't need anymore. If that happens while your audio is processing, what happens is that your audio could break and that you may get like audio stuttering or you may get or it may work, you know. But that's the reason why we use C++ because you can have that lower level control to be able to ensure that everything is running as quickly as possible and really being able to optimize how you write the language to ensure that you don't get any breaks like that. So there are all these rules about things that you should or should not be able to do when you're processing the audio itself to ensure that these things like breakages, buffering, stuttering doesn't happen.
That's interesting because I like to dumb it down for my brain and for the audience is that, in coding, you could have an actual error in the code. So if you type something wrong with it's called syntax, you could have an actual error, or you could have your program run completely fine, but it has a bug that you can't see visually. Like something about the combination, like the way your groove is on the drums and the way you did the chords are off. It technically works, but like something's off and you don't know what it is. That's called bugs, from what I understand. And
Mm.
I'm simplifying it this way to understand, the way that whole process works under the hood is that it can have these unforeseen type things, almost like subtitles on a TV show. Like, it'll say what it thinks, but it's the wrong word. And now
Mm.
you're reading a sentence completely differently. That's my dumbed down brain. But
Yeah.
we have 5 minutes left. I want to make sure you get this highlighted. Firstly, Josh is a secret weapon. I rarely introduce people to Josh because I don't want to ruin the relationship. Secondly, hopefully you guys take this as motivation to grab his new book, with Matisse.
Yeah.
Matisse. Okay, and it's called Creating Synthesizer Plugins with C++ and Juice. I bought it the second that you made it public because I was like, holy crap. This is making me feel confident in communicating with Josh. Because before I didn't know much about, I just knew about waves and some of the programs that I used to handle the waves. Now I can kind of talk the coding language a little bit with Josh. And I feel like now I can communicate and articulate ideas a little bit better. But Josh is a high level folk type of person. This is not just waste his time. That's why I don't want to send people your way who are going to waste your time. But the book is going to give them confidence to build something small. They'll see the success from that. And then they'll be like, wow, let's continue this and help join forces with Josh, who can make this way bigger. Because I'll tell you, and I know nobody else will tell it, is that Josh is responsible for millions of dollars in audio plugins. Okay. So that's why we keep them as a secret, because this is a huge money opportunity, but it's not about money. It's about, we have ideas and we're like, these are cool ideas, but we don't know how to execute them. And we don't want people to think that we're trying to rip their companies down either. So it's always that fine line in business where people get jealous and then you got to worry about people trying to destroy stuff. But I could always trust in you because, one, you led with teaching on your YouTube page called The Audio Programmer. And then two, you learned, what did you learn before you started teaching C++? What was the thing that you were focused on? Was it Juice?
Oh man, well, I actually started the channel. Wow, this is probably a thing for a whole other podcast, but I actually started the channel when I was still learning the basics. And I think that's why so many people resonated with me, because I wasn't coming from an expert perspective. I was actually coming from a perspective as a person who was just starting. So I could speak this language that was relatable to people. So basically there were other people nobody else that really had a YouTube channel, but there were other people that, were trying to explain these concepts, but they were explaining it in their language. So I was one of the first people to actually bring it to the language of the people, explaining it in the way that I would explain to somebody on the street. So that was what I really brought to the table, was making it relatable, making it something that a person who wasn't a developer, they could understand what I was talking about. So yeah. But I actually originally come from DJing. So I DJ'd full time for about 15 years. I've traveled all around the world as a DJ, and music production, but more like in new disco, some house music, that style of music production. But yeah.
It's like you read my mind. I was about to tell the people he started as one of us and as a DJ.
That's right. I still am. I still am. I mean, I have my own DJ app that I'm working on right now. I've been working on it for the past couple of years. So
sick. I see the mixer behind you, or is that a turntable?
Yeah.
I can't tell.
Yeah, I got the mixer, I got the turntables. Yeah, so I'm all about it.
Let's go. Yeah, and it's hard because we have a minute. I don't want to overeat your time. I could make comments after, but I'm just saying this not to be a victim, but as a Black person who comes in and is successful on YouTube and made all these products and has a following, we tend to threaten a lot of folks for some reason. That doesn't always mean skin color. It just means that we could be the best at what we do, but we threaten somebody higher up and they just close that door. But with Josh, he said, I'm going to open the door and show you this other side. That's why I appreciate you, because it's hard to trust folks on the other side when you're putting thousands of dollars, like tens of thousands of dollars out into an investment. You got to pray and hope they don't run off with that. And so not only were you securing that confidence in me, but also just knowing that the vision would actually be close to what I had in mind. That means a lot more than what you may think to folks like us. I want to just thank you for that. Not saying, not trying to create sides, but it's just very difficult. Like, I'll shut up because we have a minute left, but I asked somebody to help me with contact and they just were like, yeah, I'll help. And then just vanished. It's always that, it's hard to get information is my point. I'll link the book, guys, in the chat. I'll link the book. But any final thoughts? I guess we have 30 seconds left. I overtalked so much.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on here. Check out my YouTube channel called The Audio Programmer. And we do have services. So if you're looking for software development, we can help with that. TheAudioProgrammer.com is the website. Also, if you're looking to build a software team, we can help out with that too. We have a recruitment company and everything.
Oh, that's fire. You're really setting fires. Oh, that's cool. I got to have a different conversation with you. Man, Josh has been killing it ever since. I'm going to let you go and wishing you peace and peace to your family.
Yeah. Happy holidays.
Oh yeah, happy holidays. Wow, I forgot. All right, peace out. I'll see you.
Take- all right.
Man, I rarely introduce people to Josh unless they're at the level that they need to be to talk to a Josh. That's why I said this conversation was important to me because we scheduled this probably 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out, and I don't like to waste this time. Um, and I don't want to waste you guys' time either. But Josh is like he's humble, so it doesn't come across this way, and he's very modest. It seems, but just so y'all understand the conversation to the person we just had, he's responsible for a lot of success in the music producer community. Scorch, you guys have seen Scorch ads all the time. Decap Knock, those two plugins alone are insane. He's helped me with my Hermes plugin that turned into, and then we got a cease and desist from the Hermes fashion brand, which is BS, but I didn't feel like fighting it with tens of thousands of dollars. So I just dropped the name. We called it, what do we call it? Hermes Synth after that. Then I was just like, forget it. It's too close to Hermes. Let's just call it TBD, to be determined. And that project was just what it was. Um, but yeah, Josh guided me through the process every single step. He was at all the meetings, making sure that like the other side wasn't trying to screw us over or anything like that. So it's rare to come across a person who can, one, give you a book for $37. I'll put the book on the screen because I'm on chapter 3 right now. I have my, what do you call, bookmarks on the left. So, I mean, just to give you guys a quick glimpse, I'm not going to give out the information in the book, but I mean, it's thorough. Like the problem with learning coding is that the people who write the books usually are talking way above your head to where, they're talking as if you know something already. But this book is built to where if you know nothing about coding, you can get started. That's the crazy part about this book is I didn't think it was possible, but he made it possible. And the book is called, let me get to the top. Here's the title to the book. Let me switch screens real quick. Creating synthesizer plugins with C++ and Juice. Now, you guys may think this is some promotional thing. Let me tell you why we had this live stream. Is one, because I wanted to talk to Josh, but two is because you guys said that the other video that I made about how to create synthesizers wasn't legit, even though I showed you how to make a synthesizer. It just wasn't, you might not be able to build Nexus that way, but you could build a synthesizer. And so now I'm giving you the absolute definitive way to build the synthesizer. Now you have direct access to that information, and now we could potentially do projects together. It'd be awesome to like figure out some kind of incubator system with Josh, to where if you guys had crazy ideas and you're a big influencer or whatever the case may be, whatever your leverage is, maybe come into the incubator. I pull the investors together as far as like people in the producer community. We put in, I don't know, 1,000 each or something like that until the money is stacked up to where it needs to be to pay a Josh. Because Josh is not this, hey, I'll do it for $1,000 type of person. So I want to make that very, very clear. That's why I don't introduce him to you guys in the network, is because you got to be at a certain level before you even come to a Josh anyhow. So I think the cool idea would be take the producer community leaders. We all have our like investment pool, so to speak, and we invest in ideas that we all have. And now we're all owning the success of the actual software. I think that makes the most sense. I just think that we need to educate some of the leaders a little bit more on how that works. But yeah, Josh is definitely a huge piece of this ecosystem, and we always got to show respect